The morning sun peeked through the clouds as Olivia jogged down the busy city sidewalk. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, sweat glistening on her forehead. She wore plain gray running shorts and an old university t-shirt that had seen better days. Nothing about her appearance suggested she was the CEO of Horizon Financial Group, one of the city's largest banking institutions. That was exactly how she liked it. Olivia checked her watch and slowed to a walk, her breathing heavy after pushing herself on the last mile. She had 45 minutes before her first meeting, plenty of time to stop by the downtown branch, make a withdrawal, and get home to shower and change. The thought of the withdrawal made her smile. For months, she'd been secretly planning a complete renovation of the employee break room at headquarters. The current space was depressing, outdated furniture, harsh lighting, and a coffee machine that belonged in a museum. Her staff deserved better. She'd found a local contractor willing to transform the space over the weekend while most employees were away. The contractor, however, was old school and preferred cash for the initial materials payment. Hence her unplanned bank visit. Olivia pushed open the heavy glass door of the downtown branch, the cool air conditioning a welcome relief from the summer heat. She'd chosen this location specifically because it wasn't near the corporate offices. She wanted the renovation to be a complete surprise. The branch was moderately busy for a Thursday morning. A young couple sat with a loan officer near the window. An elderly man carefully counted bills at the counter, and 3 people waited in line for the tellers. Olivia took her place at the end of the line, using the time to check emails on her phone. When it was finally her turn, she approached the counter with a friendly smile. The teller behind the glass was unfamiliar to her, a young man with neatly combed hair and a crisp blue tie that matched the bank's logo. His nameplate read Tyler. His serious expression and perfect posture suggested he was relatively new and eager to impress. "Good morning," Olivia said, placing her ID and bank card on the counter. "I'd like to make a withdrawal, please." Tyler picked up her ID and compared it to her face, his eyes lingering a bit longer than usual. Olivia knew she looked different than her driver's license photo. That had been taken 3 years ago when she wore her hair differently and hadn't been straight from a 5-mile run. "How much would you like to withdraw today, Ms. Rivera?" he asked, his tone professionally neutral as he typed something into his computer. $25,000, she replied quietly, aware of how the amount might sound. She'd called ahead the previous day to ensure the branch would have enough cash on hand, though she hadn't identified herself as the CEO when making that request. Tyler's fingers froze over the keyboard. He looked up at her, then back at the ID, then at his computer screen. The muscles in his jaw tightened. "I'll need a moment, please," he said, stepping away from his window and walking over to a desk where an older woman was working on some paperwork. Olivia watched as they had a hushed conversation, the woman occasionally glancing in her direction. She could feel the curious looks from the other customers in line behind her. The elderly man who'd been counting bills was now watching the interaction with undisguised interest. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a minute, Tyler returned to the window. "I'm sorry, Ms. Rivera, but I'll need additional verification for a withdrawal of this size." His voice was louder now, carrying to the nearby customers. "It's for security purposes, you understand?" "Of course," Olivia said calmly, though she felt a flicker of annoyance. She knew the security protocols of her own bank inside and out. She'd helped implement many of them. And this particular branch should have been prepared for her withdrawal after her call yesterday. "What additional verification do you need?" "Well, this account shows some unusual patterns," Tyler said, looking uncomfortable. "And given the amount, my manager feels we should take extra precautions. Do you have any additional identification? Perhaps a passport or a second form of photo ID?" Olivia dug through her small running pack and produced her passport, which she handed over. "I always carry this when I'm making larger transactions," she explained, keeping her voice level despite her growing frustration. Tyler examined the passport, then returned to the desk where the older woman sat. Their conversation seemed more intense this time, with the woman shaking her head firmly. By now, everyone in the small branch was watching. The loan officer had paused his meeting with the young couple, and the security guard near the door had taken a few steps closer. Olivia felt her cheeks growing warm. This was exactly the kind of attention she'd been hoping to avoid. Tyler returned once more, looking even more uncomfortable. I'm very sorry, Ms. Rivera, but my manager has some concerns about this transaction. The address on your ID doesn't match our most current records, and there's a flag on the account requiring additional verification for large withdrawals. My manager is calling our regional director for guidance. Olivia took a deep breath. The address discrepancy was easily explained. She'd moved 6 months ago but hadn't updated her driver's license yet. As for the flag on the account, that was a security measure for executive accounts that she herself had approved. But it was supposed to trigger a simple verification question, not this public spectacle. Could I speak with your manager directly? She asked, working to keep her voice friendly. Getting angry wouldn't help the situation, and she didn't want to embarrass this young teller who was clearly just following what he thought were the proper procedures. She's on the phone right now with Regional, Tyler explained, shifting his weight from one foot to another. It shouldn't be much longer. Would you mind stepping aside so I can help the next customer while you wait? The suggestion stung more than it should have. Olivia nodded and stepped away from the counter, moving to a small waiting area near the loan officer's desk. She could feel eyes following her as she sat down. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Olivia checked her watch, calculating how this delay would impact her morning schedule. The surprise renovation was important to her, but she had a board meeting at 11 that she couldn't miss. Finally, a door at the back of the branch opened, and a woman in a sharp navy suit walked out. Olivia recognized her immediately as Diane Porter, the branch manager. They'd met at the company holiday party last year, though they hadn't spoken at length. Diane was speaking urgently into a cell phone as she approached. Yes, I understand, but the security protocol specifically states that. She stopped mid-sentence as she looked up and saw Olivia waiting. The color drained from her face. I'll call you back, she said quickly into the phone before ending the call. She smoothed her skirt and took a deep breath before walking over. Ms. Rivera, she said, her voice unnaturally high. I'm so sorry for the wait. There seems to have been a misunderstanding. It appears so, Olivia agreed mildly, standing to meet the manager's eye level. If you'll come with me to my office, we can complete your transaction immediately, Diane said, gesturing toward the door she'd just exited. As they walked through the branch, Olivia noted how the other employees were suddenly very focused on their work, avoiding eye contact. Tyler the teller looked like he might be sick. Diane's office was small but neat, with family photos arranged carefully on the desk and certificates of achievement hanging on the wall. She closed the door behind them and turned to Olivia with a mortified expression. Ms. Rivera, I cannot begin to express how sorry I am for this situation, she began. Tyler is new. Today is only his 2nd week, and he was following our heightened security protocols for large withdrawals. When he saw the executive account flag, he brought it to my attention, as he's been trained to do. And you didn't recognize my name? Olivia asked, genuinely curious rather than accusatory. Diane's face flushed deeper. I did. But I couldn't believe the CEO would be making a personal withdrawal of this size at our branch, especially. She hesitated. Especially looking like this? Olivia gestured to her running clothes with a small smile. I was going to say especially without notifying us in advance. But yes, the casual appearance was unexpected, Diane admitted. I called Regional to confirm it was really you, which is our protocol for executive accounts. I had no idea you were sitting out there waiting all this time. I thought Tyler had brought you to the conference room and offered you coffee. Olivia nodded, understanding the cascade of misunderstandings that had led to this moment. Well, we're here now. Let's complete the transaction so we can both get on with our day. Diane processed the withdrawal herself, carefully counting out the bills and placing them in an envelope. Her hands trembled slightly as she worked. The funds are for a surprise office renovation, Olivia explained, hoping to ease some of the tension. I'm having the employee break room at headquarters redone this weekend. That's very thoughtful, Diane said, looking slightly relieved at the explanation. The staff will appreciate that. As Diane handed over the envelope, she added, Again, Ms. Rivera, I am truly sorry for the inconvenience and embarrassment. I understand if you want to file a formal complaint about how this was handled. Olivia tucked the envelope into her running pack and considered the woman across the desk. Diane was clearly expecting to be reprimanded, perhaps even fired. The teller Tyler would likely face disciplinary action as well. But as she thought about it, Olivia realized something important. They had been following the security protocols exactly as designed. The system had worked, perhaps too well and with poor customer service, but it had worked. An unusual transaction had been flagged. Additional verification had been sought and the bank's assets had been protected. "No complaint will be necessary," Olivia said finally. "But I would like to have a conversation about how we handle these situations in the future. Security is crucial, but so is customer dignity." Diane looked surprised but nodded quickly. "Of course. I would welcome any guidance you could provide." Olivia stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Diane, please tell Tyler he did the right thing by being cautious. That's exactly what we train our people to do." As she walked out of the branch into the late morning sunshine, Olivia's mind was already racing with ideas. This uncomfortable experience had given her a rare glimpse into how her bank's policies she had helped create, actually affected customers. And she had a feeling this insight was going to lead to some important changes at Horizon Financial. She checked her watch. She'd need to hurry to make it home, shower, and get to her board meeting on time. But even as she picked up her pace, she couldn't help smiling. The story of how the CEO couldn't withdraw money from her own bank was going to make for an interesting discussion at the next executive leadership meeting, and she had a feeling Tyler and Diane were going to play a much bigger role in the future of Horizon Financial than they could possibly imagine. Olivia made it to the board meeting with 2 minutes to spare. She had raced home, showered in record time, and thrown on her navy power suit. Her hair was still slightly damp at the ends as she settled into her chair at the head of the gleaming conference table. "Good morning, everyone," she said, her voice steady despite the morning's chaos. "Let's begin." For the next 2 hours, Olivia guided the board through quarterly projections, risk assessments, and a proposed expansion into neighboring states. She spoke confidently about the bank's solid foundation and their plans for growth. Not once did she mention her experience at the downtown branch. That would come later, when she had fully processed what had happened. After the meeting, Olivia declined lunch with the board members and returned to her office. She closed the door, something she rarely did, and sat at her desk. The envelope of cash was tucked safely in her purse, ready for the contractor who would arrive at headquarters the following evening. Olivia pulled out her laptop and opened the company's customer service protocols. She began reading them carefully, not as the CEO who had approved them, but as a customer who had just experienced them firsthand. An hour later, her assistant knocked softly on the door. "Come in," Olivia called. "Your 3 o'clock is here," her assistant reminded her, "and you have those calls with the regional directors at 4. "Thank you, Lisa, I'll be right out." Olivia closed her laptop with a sigh. The rest of her day was packed with meetings and calls. The branch incident would have to wait. But as she moved through her afternoon schedule, her mind kept returning to the looks on Tyler and Diane's faces. The genuine fear, the mortification, she'd seen that same expression countless times in her career. Employees terrified of making a mistake, of displeasing someone with power over their livelihoods. Was that the kind of leader she had become? The kind that inspired fear rather than loyalty? It was nearly 7 when Olivia finally finished her last call. Most of the office had emptied, the cleaning crew making their rounds through the executive floor. She should go home, get some rest before tomorrow's meetings. Instead, she opened her laptop again and began typing. By 9 o'clock, she had drafted a detailed memo. It outlined a complete review of customer service procedures, with special attention to how security protocols affected the customer experience. She proposed forming a task force of frontline employees, tellers, loan officers, call center representatives, to provide input on how these procedures felt from their perspective. Olivia hesitated before sending it to her executive team. Would they see this as an overreaction to one isolated incident? Maybe. But her gut told her this wasn't just about her bad morning. It was about something fundamental to their business. She pressed send. Then she did something she almost never did. She looked up employee files. Specifically Tyler Johnson and Diane Porter from the downtown branch. She wasn't checking their performance records or looking for previous mistakes. She was looking at their backgrounds, trying to understand who they were as people. Tyler was 24, a recent college graduate with a degree in finance. He had been with the bank for exactly 11 days. His application essay had mentioned his grandmother, who had lost her home in the 2008 financial crisis. He had written about wanting to work for a bank that treated people fairly. Diane was 42, a single mother of 2 teenagers. She had worked her way up from teller to branch manager over 15 years with the company. Her performance reviews consistently praised her attention to detail and commitment to security protocols. She had never had a cash drawer discrepancy in her entire career. These weren't careless people. They were doing exactly what Horizon Financial had trained them to do. The next morning, Olivia arrived at the office early. She had several missed calls from members of her executive team responding to her late-night memo. Most seemed confused by her sudden interest in customer service protocols, but they were on board. No one dared question the CEO's priorities too directly. At 10 o'clock, she gathered her senior staff in the conference room. "I had an interesting experience yesterday," she began, recounting her visit to the downtown branch. She told the story simply, without naming Tyler or Diane, focusing instead on the systems that had led to the situation. But they were right, she concluded, surprising the executives who had been nodding sympathetically. "Our security protocols worked exactly as designed. The problem is that we've emphasized security at the expense of customer dignity." Her chief operating officer frowned. "With all due respect, Olivia, one awkward interaction doesn't mean we need to overhaul our entire system. Our security protocols are industry-leading." "I agree," she replied, "and I'm not suggesting we compromise on security. But yesterday I was treated like a potential criminal in front of a lobby full of people because I wanted to access my own money, and I'm the CEO. Imagine how regular customers feel." The room fell silent as her point sank in. "So what are you proposing?" asked her chief of customer experience, already reaching for his tablet to take notes. "I'm proposing we learn from the people who deal with these situations every day," Olivia said. "Not just our executives and not just our customers, but our frontline staff. The tellers and service representatives who have to balance security requirements with customer needs in real time." By the end of the meeting, they had outlined a plan for a 3-month review of all customer-facing procedures. Regional directors would identify top-performing branch employees to participate in focus groups. Customer satisfaction metrics would be analyzed at a deeper level, looking for patterns in complaints and compliments. It was an ambitious undertaking, one that would require significant resources. But no one in the room questioned whether it was worth it. Olivia's passion for the project was contagious. As the executives filed out, her chief financial officer lingered behind. "This is about more than just that one branch visit, isn't it?" he asked quietly. Olivia nodded. "It made me realize how disconnected I've become from the day-to-day reality of our business. I approve policies in this room, but I don't see how they play out on the ground. That needs to change." After lunch, Olivia did something that surprised her assistant and the entire executive floor. She canceled her afternoon meetings and drove back to the downtown branch. The same security guard stood by the door, doing a double-take as she walked in wearing a proper business suit this time. The branch was busier than it had been the previous morning, with a line of customers stretching nearly to the door. Diane spotted her immediately from across the lobby. The branch manager paled slightly but quickly composed herself, walking over with a professional smile. "Ms. Rivera, what a surprise. Is there something I can help you with today?" "Actually, I was hoping to speak with you and Tyler for a few minutes," Olivia said. "If you're not too busy." "Of course," Diane said, though her expression suggested she was bracing for bad news. "We can use my office. I'll get Tyler." Minutes later, the three of them sat in Diane's small office. Tyler looked like he might throw up, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. "I want to start by assuring you both that you're not in any trouble," Olivia said, addressing the fear directly. In fact, quite the opposite. The tension in the room shifted slightly. Confusion replaced fear in their expressions. "Yesterday's incident got me thinking about how we approach customer service at Horizon," she continued. "And I realized we've been missing a crucial perspective, yours." Olivia explained the new initiative and her desire to include frontline employees in reshaping the bank's approach to customer service. As she spoke, she could see the confusion on their faces giving way to cautious interest. "So," she concluded, "I'd like to invite both of you to be part of our initial focus group. Your experience yesterday provides valuable insight into how our policies work, or don't work, in practice." Tyler and Diane exchanged glances. "You want our opinion?" Tyler asked, as if he couldn't quite believe it. "Absolutely," Olivia nodded. "You're the ones who have to implement these policies every day. You see how customers react. You navigate the gray areas our rulebooks can't possibly cover. Diane leaned forward slightly. May I speak frankly, Ms. Rivera? Please do. There are several procedures that make perfect sense from a security standpoint, but create regular conflicts with customers. The large withdrawal verification is just one example. Tell me more, Olivia encouraged. For the next 30 minutes, she listened as Diane and Tyler outlined pain points in their daily work. The conversation flowed more naturally as they realized she genuinely wanted their input. Tyler, despite his newness, had already identified several procedures that customers found confusing or frustrating. Diane shared her workarounds for maintaining security while preserving customer relationships. This is exactly the kind of insight we need, Olivia said when they finally paused. Would you be willing to come to headquarters next Tuesday for our first focus group session? I'll make sure your branch is covered. Both nodded eagerly. As Olivia stood to leave, Tyler spoke up. Ms. Rivera, I just want to say I'm sorry again about yesterday. Don't be, she replied with a warm smile. Sometimes our most uncomfortable moments lead to our best ideas. Driving back to headquarters, Olivia felt a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced in months. Banking was, at its core, about trust. Customers trusted the bank with their money, their financial futures, their dreams. Employees trusted the bank with their careers, their growth, their livelihoods. That trust had to go both ways. The bank needed to trust its customers and its employees as much as they were asked to trust the bank. By the time she pulled into her reserved parking space, Olivia had already started mentally drafting the agenda for Tuesday's focus group. The renovation contractor would be starting work on the break room tomorrow evening, transforming the space into something more comfortable and welcoming for the staff. But Olivia was now planning a much bigger transformation. One that would reach every corner of Horizon Financial, from policy manuals to customer experiences to employee engagement, and it had all started because she couldn't make a simple withdrawal from her own bank. Tuesday morning arrived with a buzz of anticipation at Horizon Financial headquarters. The employee break room renovation had been completed over the weekend, and staff members were delighted with the transformation. Gone were the dingy walls and uncomfortable chairs, replaced by warm lighting, comfortable seating, and a state-of-the-art coffee station. The contractor had even managed to install a small outdoor patio where employees could enjoy lunch on nice days. But Olivia had little time to bask in the success of the renovation. Today was the first meeting of what she now called the Customer Experience Task Force, and she was determined to make it count. The conference room she'd chosen wasn't the imposing boardroom where executive decisions were typically made. Instead, she'd selected a bright, mid-sized room with a round table, a deliberate choice to put everyone on equal footing. She'd also instructed her assistant to order lunch from a local sandwich shop, rather than the fancy catering they usually used for executive meetings. Olivia arrived early to review her notes. She wanted this meeting to be different from the stiff formal gatherings that typically filled her calendar. These frontline employees needed to feel comfortable speaking honestly, even if their feedback wasn't what executives wanted to hear. At precisely 10 o'clock, Lisa showed in the first participants, Tyler and Diane from the downtown branch. They were dressed in their best business attire, looking slightly nervous as they entered the unfamiliar territory of corporate headquarters. Good morning. Olivia greeted them warmly. Thank you for coming. Please grab some coffee and find a seat anywhere you'd like. Over the next few minutes, 8 more employees filed in, 2 other branch managers, 3 experienced tellers from different locations, a loan officer, and 2 customer service representatives from the call center. Olivia had never met most of them, but she'd reviewed their files. Each had been recommended by their supervisors for their exceptional customer service skills and problem-solving abilities. Once everyone was settled with coffee and pastries, Olivia stood to address the group. Thank you all for being here today. I know some of you had to travel from branches across the city, and I appreciate you taking time away from your regular duties. She paused, looking around the table. You might be wondering why you're here. The short answer is, I need your help. She briefly recounted her experience at the downtown branch, careful to emphasize that Tyler and Diane had followed procedures correctly. Several heads nodded in recognition. Clearly, this wasn't an isolated incident. What I realized that day was that we've created a system that works perfectly on paper, but often fails in practice. We've prioritized security and efficiency over the human experience, both for our customers and for you, our employees who have to enforce these policies. A teller from the Western branch raised her hand tentatively. Is this about the new authentication system? Because customers hate it. It takes forever, and they get frustrated having to answer so many questions. That's exactly the kind of feedback we need, Olivia nodded. What else? The floodgates opened. For the next hour, the employees shared their daily challenges and frustrations. They talked about policies that seemed logical in theory, but created problems in practice. They described the difficult position they were often in, caught between following bank protocols and providing good customer service. A call center representative named Greg spoke up. The worst is when we have to transfer customers multiple times for different issues. By the time they get to the right department, they're already angry. Then we get bad customer satisfaction scores, even though we're just following the process. And the paperwork, added a loan officer named Kim. I understand why we need documentation, but some of our forms ask for the same information 3 or 4 different ways. It's confusing for customers and time-consuming for us. Olivia took notes as they spoke, occasionally asking clarifying questions, but mostly just listening. These weren't complaints from disgruntled employees, they were insights from people who cared deeply about doing their jobs well, but felt hindered by the very systems designed to help them. After a short break for lunch, Olivia steered the conversation toward solutions. You've identified some key pain points, she said. Now let's think about how we might address them. If you could change one thing about how we operate, what would it be? The suggestions came quickly. Tyler, who had been quiet for most of the morning, finally spoke up. What if we had a way to verify customer identity that wasn't so public? Like maybe a separate area for larger transactions or sensitive discussions? At my previous job, they had these semi-private consultation spaces. It made a huge difference. Privacy pods, Diane nodded enthusiastically. Many customers feel uncomfortable discussing financial matters where others can overhear. Others suggested streamlining the authentication process, consolidating forms and creating a more logical workflow for call transfers. A branch manager proposed cross-training employees so they could handle a wider range of customer needs without having to pass people around. These are all excellent ideas, Olivia said when they finally paused. What strikes me is that none of them compromise our security or compliance requirements. They simply make the experience better for everyone involved. The energy in the room had transformed. What had started as a cautious gathering was now buzzing with creativity and engagement. These employees weren't just identifying problems. They were invested in finding solutions. As the meeting wound down, Olivia outlined next steps. The task force would meet monthly for the next 3 months. In between meetings, members would document specific examples of customer pain points and test potential solutions in their branches or departments. We'll need data to support any major changes, she explained. But we'll also need the human stories, the real-world impact these policies have on customers and on your ability to serve them well. Before everyone departed, Olivia had one more announcement. I want to thank you all for your candor today. I know it's not easy to speak openly about challenges, especially to someone in my position. She smiled. To demonstrate how seriously we're taking this initiative, I've allocated a special budget for implementing your recommendations. Each of you will have the authority to test solutions in your own branches or departments, with full support from executive leadership. The surprise was evident on their faces. Frontline employees rarely receive this kind of autonomy or resources. Does that mean we can actually make changes without going through 17 layers of approval? Asked one of the branch managers, only half joking. Within reason, yes, Olivia confirmed. You'll have guidelines, of course, but I'm trusting you to know what your customers and colleagues need. You're the experts on the ground. As the group filed out, energized by their new mission, Tyler lingered behind. Ms. Rivera, he began hesitantly, I just wanted to say thank you. When I applied to work at Horizon, I wrote about wanting to be part of a bank that treats people fairly. After what happened with you at the branch, I was afraid I'd made a mistake coming here. But now, he gestured to the notes and plans spread across the table. I can see that Horizon really does care. Olivia was touched by his sincerity. The truth is, Tyler, we lost sight of some important things. You helped remind us what matters. After everyone had gone, Olivia remained at the table reviewing her notes from the meeting. Her phone buzzed with messages from other executives curious about how the gathering with the branch people had gone. She ignored them for now, too absorbed in processing what she'd learned. The problems were bigger than she'd initially thought. The disconnect between policy and practice, between headquarters and branches, between security requirements and customer experience. These weren't issues that could be solved with a quick policy update or a new training module. But the potential solutions were also more promising than she'd expected. The employees she'd met today weren't just complaining, they were passionate about making things better. They had concrete ideas, practical suggestions born from daily experience. All they needed was the authority and resources to implement them. Olivia gathered her materials and headed back to her office. Her calendar for the afternoon was packed with regular executive meetings, but her mind was still with the task force. For the first time in months, perhaps years, she felt genuinely excited about a new initiative. This wasn't just another corporate program to be rolled out with fancy presentations and quickly forgotten. This was about fundamentally changing how Horizon Financial approached its most important relationships, with customers and employees alike. As she walked through the executive floor, she passed the newly renovated break room. A group of staff members were gathered around the new coffee machine, laughing and chatting. The space felt alive in a way it never had before. In that moment, Olivia realized that the bank withdrawal incident, uncomfortable as it had been, might end up being the best thing that had happened to Horizon Financial in years. Sometimes it took being on the receiving end of your own policies to truly understand their impact, and sometimes the best ideas came from the very people who were rarely invited into the conversation. She settled behind her desk to prepare for her next meeting. Olivia made a decision. This customer experience initiative wouldn't be a side project or a temporary focus. It would become a fundamental part of how Horizon Financial operated moving forward. And Tyler and Diane, the two employees who had unwittingly started it all by following the rules too well, would help lead the way. 3 months flew by in a whirlwind of activity. The customer experience task force had evolved from a tentative group of frontline employees into a confident team of innovators. What had started as a single meeting had grown into a movement within Horizon Financial, with branches across the region implementing pilot programs based on the task force's recommendations. Olivia sat at her desk reviewing the latest customer satisfaction data. The numbers told a compelling story. In branches where the new initiatives had been implemented, customer complaints had decreased by 28%. Wait times were down and positive feedback was up significantly. But the numbers only told part of the story. The real success was in the anecdotes. The elderly customer who wrote a thank you note after a teller helped him navigate the new mobile banking app. The small business owner who completed her loan application in half the usual time. The young couple who praised the private consultation area that allowed them to discuss their financial troubles without the whole branch. Overhearing. Knock knock, a voice called from her open door. Olivia looked up to see Tyler standing there, a tablet in hand and a confident smile on his face. He no longer resembled the nervous teller who had denied her withdrawal 3 months ago. Now he moved with purpose, dressed in a well-fitted suit with a Horizon Financial pin on his lapel, the special pin given to task force members. Come in. Tyler, I was just reviewing the satisfaction scores. That's actually why I'm here, he said, taking a seat across from her desk. The privacy pods we installed at the downtown branch have been so successful that customers from other branches are asking when they'll get them. That's a good problem to have, Olivia laughed. What does Diane think? She says we need to order more immediately. The scheduling system is booked solid for the next 2 weeks. Olivia made a note on her tablet. The privacy pods had been Tyler's idea. Small, semi-enclosed spaces where customers could discuss sensitive financial matters or complete complex transactions without the usual audience of waiting customers. They had installed 3 as a test at the downtown branch, and they had proven wildly popular. I'll talk to facilities about rolling them out to all branches, she promised. What else is on your mind? Tyler swiped through several screens on his tablet. The simplified authentication process is working well too. Transactions that used to take 15 minutes are now taking 5 or 6, and customers seem much less frustrated. The authentication process had been one of the first targets for improvement. The task force had worked with the security team to streamline identity verification without compromising safety. The new system maintained all the security checks but presented them in a more logical order and eliminated redundant questions. Any pushback from the security team? Olivia asked. Actually, no. Once they saw that the essential verification steps were still happening, just in a more efficient way, they were on board. And the reduced wait times mean fewer impatient customers trying to rush through the process, which actually improves security. Olivia nodded, pleased but not surprised. The task force had been careful to bring security personnel into the conversation early, making them partners in the improvement process rather than obstacles to work around. How about the branch layout changes? Are those on schedule? The Western branch renovation starts next week, Tyler confirmed. The design team incorporated all our suggestions: better queue management, more private consultation areas, and digital check-in stations to reduce waiting time. As they continued discussing the various initiatives, Olivia reflected on how far they had come in such a short time. The executives who had initially viewed the customer experience task force as a CEO's pet project were now fully committed to the transformation. The proof was in the numbers. Happier customers meant better business. But perhaps the most significant change was in the bank's culture. Employees at all levels were now empowered to identify problems and suggest solutions. The rigid hierarchy that had defined Horizon Financial for decades was giving way to a more collaborative approach. "Oh, I almost forgot," Tyler said, pulling a folder from his bag. "The cross-training program is ready to launch. 10 employees from different departments volunteered for the pilot. The cross-training initiative would allow employees to learn roles beyond their primary position. A teller might train in loan processing, or a customer service representative might learn about investment products. The goal was to create a workforce that could handle a wider range of customer needs without constant referrals and transfers." "Excellent," Olivia said, taking the folder. "And how are you finding your new role?" "It's quite a change from being a teller." Tyler had recently been promoted to Customer Experience Specialist, a new position created specifically to support the ongoing transformation. He split his time between working at the downtown branch and coordinating with other branches to implement the task force's recommendations. "It's challenging," he admitted with a smile, "but in the best way possible. I feel like I'm making a real difference." After Tyler left, Olivia turned her attention to her next meeting, a presentation to the board of directors about the results of the Customer Experience Initiative. The quarterly board meeting was scheduled for tomorrow, and she wanted to make sure every detail was perfect. The truth was, not everyone had been supportive of these changes. Several board members had expressed concern about the costs associated with branch renovations and new training programs. Others worried that simplifying security procedures might expose the bank to increased fraud risk. Despite the security team's assurances to the contrary, Olivia needed to show them concrete results. To prove that this transformation wasn't just about making customers feel good, it was about building a stronger, more competitive bank. She spent the afternoon finalizing her presentation, gathering data from various departments to create a comprehensive picture of the initiative's impact. The numbers were impressive: increased customer retention, higher satisfaction scores, improved employee engagement, and even early signs of revenue growth as satisfied customers brought in new business. By the time she left the office that evening, Olivia felt confident about the next day's meeting. The board members might be skeptical, but they couldn't argue with success. The next morning, Olivia arrived at headquarters early. The boardroom had been prepared for the quarterly meeting. Water glasses filled, presentation equipment tested, leather portfolios placed at each seat containing the meeting agenda and supporting documents. As board members began to arrive, Olivia greeted them individually, making small talk about families and vacation plans. These were smart, successful people who had helped build Horizon Financial into the institution it was today. Their caution wasn't unreasonable. They had a responsibility to protect the bank's interests and reputation. Once everyone was seated, the board chairman called the meeting to order. They moved efficiently through the standard agenda items: financial reports, risk assessments, regulatory updates. Finally, it was time for Olivia's presentation. "As you know," she began, standing at the head of the table, 3 months ago, we launched what we called the Customer Experience Initiative. Today, I'd like to share our progress and results. For the next 30 minutes, she walked them through the changes that had been implemented, the data that had been collected, and the outcomes that had been achieved. She showed before and after customer satisfaction scores, employee retention rates, and operational efficiency metrics. She shared stories of positive customer interactions and examples of problems that had been solved. But perhaps the most telling indicator, she said, approaching the end of her presentation, is this. She clicked to a slide showing a comparison of new account openings across all branches. The branches that had implemented the task force's recommendations showed a 15% increase compared to those that hadn't yet made the changes. People talk, Olivia explained simply. They tell their friends and family about good experiences. And in banking, word of mouth remains our most powerful marketing tool. When she finished, there was a moment of silence as the board members absorbed the information. Then the questions began, thoughtful, probing questions about sustainability, scalability, and long-term impact. Olivia answered each one with confidence, not because she had rehearsed responses, but because she truly believed in the work they were doing. This wasn't just a corporate initiative. It was a fundamental reimagining of how Horizon Financial served its customers and supported its employees. After nearly an hour of discussion, the board chairman cleared his throat. I think I speak for all of us when I say these results are impressive. What are your plans for expanding the initiative? It was the opening Olivia had been hoping for. She outlined her vision for rolling out the successful pilot programs to all branches, incorporating customer experience metrics into performance evaluations at every level, and establishing a permanent team dedicated to continuous improvement. This isn't a one-time project, she emphasized. It's a new way of operating. We're building a bank that listens to its customers and its employees, that evolves based on real-world feedback rather than theoretical best practices. By the end of the meeting, Olivia had secured the board's full support, including approval for an expanded budget, to accelerate the rollout of successful programs. As the board members filed out, several stopped to congratulate her on the initiative's success. The chairman was the last to leave. I'll admit I was skeptical when you first proposed this, he said, gathering his papers. It seemed like an overreaction to one uncomfortable incident. But you've proven me wrong, and I'm glad you did, Olivia smiled. Sometimes it takes seeing things from a different perspective to understand what needs to change. As she packed up her own materials, Olivia's phone buzzed with a text from Diane. Downtown branch just had its best day ever for customer satisfaction scores. Privacy pods fully booked through next month. When can we get more? Olivia texted back. Board approved expanded budget today. Order as many as you need, then she added. None of this would have happened without you and Tyler. Thank you for denying my withdrawal that day. She could almost see Diane's embarrassed smile as the reply came through. Happy to help, though I wouldn't recommend that particular customer service strategy for general use. Olivia laughed out loud in the empty boardroom. What had started as an awkward and frustrating experience had led to something truly transformative. And they were just getting started. 6 months after the board meeting, Horizon Financial was buzzing with excitement. The downtown convention center had been transformed for the evening, decorated in the bank's colors with elegant lighting and comfortable seating arranged throughout the space. Tonight was the first annual Horizon Excellence Awards, a celebration of the remarkable transformation the bank had undergone. Employees from all branches and departments mingled, dressed in their finest attire. The mood was festive, more like a family gathering than a corporate event. In one corner, loan officers chatted with tellers from different branches. In another, call center representatives shared stories with investment advisors they normally only spoke to over the phone. Olivia stood near the entrance, greeting employees as they arrived. She made a point of knowing everyone's name, asking about their families or hobbies, making each person feel truly seen. Quite a turnout, said a voice beside her. Diane had appeared, looking elegant in a dark blue dress, her usual professional demeanor softened by the celebratory atmosphere. It's wonderful, Olivia agreed. Have you seen Tyler yet? He's over there, showing people the award prototype. Diane pointed across the room where Tyler was surrounded by a small crowd, gesturing animatedly as he described something to his captivated audience. The centerpiece of tonight's event was the unveiling, of the Customer Experience Awards recognition for employees and branches that had embraced the new approach to banking and delivered exceptional service. The awards themselves were beautiful crystal sculptures designed by a local artist, each one unique and handcrafted. But more important than the physical awards was what they represented, a fundamental shift in what Horizon Financial valued and celebrated. At precisely 7 o'clock, Olivia made her way to the small stage at the front of the room. The crowd quieted as she approached the microphone. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice warm and clear. "Thank you all for being here tonight. 1 year ago, I wouldn't have imagined we'd be standing in this room, celebrating what we've accomplished together." She paused, looking out at the faces of the people who had made this transformation possible. For those who don't know the story, and I suspect there are very few of you who haven't heard it by now, this journey began with a simple bank withdrawal. Or rather, an attempted withdrawal. A ripple of knowing laughter moved through the crowd. I walked into our downtown branch in my running clothes, asked to withdraw $25,000 in cash, and was promptly denied. She smiled at the memory that was now more amusing than embarrassing. 2 wonderful employees following our security protocols exactly as they should. Didn't recognize their CEO and treated me like any other customer making a suspicious transaction. Olivia gestured toward Diane and Tyler, who stood together near the front of the crowd. At first I was frustrated, then embarrassed, but by the time I left the branch that day I was curious. What was it like to be on the other side of our policies and procedures? How did our customers feel when they walked into our branches? And more importantly, how did our employees feel when they had to enforce rules that often made perfect sense on paper but created challenging situations in practice? She went on to describe the formation of the Customer Experience Task Force, the pilot programs, the data collection, and the gradual rollout of changes across all branches. She talked about the privacy pods, the simplified authentication process, the cross-training initiative, and dozens of other improvements large and small. But the numbers only tell part of the story, Olivia continued. The real success is in the human connections we've strengthened. Banking isn't just about money, it's about trust. It's about being there for people during their biggest life moments, buying their first home, sending a child to college, starting a business, planning for retirement. These are deeply personal experiences, and they deserve a deeply personal approach. She invited several employees to join her on stage, people who had gone above and beyond to embody the new Horizon philosophy. Each shared a brief story about a customer interaction that had made a difference. A teller who had noticed signs of financial abuse and helped an elderly customer protect his savings. A loan officer who had worked after hours to help a single mother complete paperwork for her small business loan. A branch manager who had opened early on a Sunday to help a family who had lost everything in a house fire. These weren't extraordinary acts in the grand scheme of things. They were simply moments when employees had been empowered to put people before processes, to find solutions rather than cite policies. And now, Olivia said, it's time for the moment you've all been waiting for. The presentation of the first annual Horizon Excellence Awards. The awards ceremony proceeded with warmth and humor. There were awards for individual employees, for branches, for departments, and for specific initiatives. Each recipient came forward to applause and cheers, accepted their crystal trophy, and shared a few words about what the transformation had meant to them. When it came time for the final and most prestigious award, Branch of the Year, no one was surprised when the downtown branch was announced as the winner. What did surprise people was that Olivia asked every employee from the branch to come to the stage, not just the manager. The downtown branch didn't just adapt to our new approach, Olivia explained as the group assembled on stage. They helped create it. From that first awkward withdrawal attempt to the development of the privacy pods to the testing of dozens of other innovations, they've been at the heart of our transformation. Diane accepted the award on behalf of the branch, her usual composure slipping just a bit as she thanked her team. We're just doing what bankers should do, helping people take care of their money and their dreams. The difference is that now we have the tools and the permission to do it the right way. As the formal ceremony concluded and the evening shifted to dinner and dancing, Olivia found herself at a table with Tyler, Diane, and several other key members of the original task force. They reminisced about the early days of the initiative, laughing now at the challenges that had seemed so daunting at the time. Did you ever imagine it would go this far? Tyler asked, gesturing around the room where hundreds of employees were celebrating together. Honestly, no, Olivia admitted. I thought we might improve a few processes, maybe boost our customer satisfaction scores a bit. I never expected... She trailed off, searching for the right words. A revolution? Diane suggested with a smile. A homecoming, Olivia corrected gently. It feels like we've found our way back to what banking should be. As the evening wound down, Olivia stepped outside for a moment of quiet reflection. The night air was cool and clear, the city lights twinkling around her. In the distance, she could see the downtown branch where it had all started. Her phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from the American Bankers Association, confirming that Horizon Financial had been selected as a finalist for their prestigious Innovation in Banking Award. The judges had been particularly impressed by the customer experience transformation and its measurable impact on both customer satisfaction and business growth. Olivia smiled as she slipped the phone back into her pocket. External recognition was nice, but it wasn't what drove her. What mattered was that Horizon Financial had become the kind of bank she had always wanted to lead, one that valued people as much as profits, that saw policies as tools rather than constraints, that understood the power of human connection in an increasingly digital world. A year ago, she had walked into a branch of her own bank and been denied a simple transaction. That moment of frustration could have ended very differently. She could have pulled rank, fired the employees involved, created an even stricter set of protocols to prevent such mistakes in the future. Instead, she had chosen curiosity over anger, collaboration over control, and that choice had transformed not just the bank, but her own understanding of leadership. Back inside, the celebration continued. Employees who had once worked in isolated departments were now chatting like old friends. Regional managers who had initially resisted the changes were now proudly describing their branch's innovations. The energy in the room was palpable, a sense of shared purpose and genuine pride. Tyler approached with 2 glasses of champagne, offering one to Olivia. A toast? He suggested. What are we toasting to? She asked, accepting the glass. He thought for a moment. To denied withdrawals and happy endings? Olivia laughed. How about this? To seeing problems as opportunities and to the courage to make things better. They clinked glasses as Diane joined them, followed by several other members of the original task force. What had begun as a simple toast evolved into an impromptu gathering, with more employees joining the circle until it filled a corner of the room. As Olivia looked around at these faces, some she had known for years, others she had met only through this initiative, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. The bank's transformation hadn't been her achievement alone. It had been the work of hundreds of people who cared enough to change the way things had always been done. In the end, that was the true success story. Not the awards or the improved metrics or even the business growth, but the cultural shift that had made Horizon Financial a place where both customers and employees felt valued, heard, and respected. And it had all started because a CEO couldn't make a withdrawal from her own bank.